my friends. It's me again, your friendly neighborhood, Jerry Rasco, here with another amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. So, if you have just jumped onto this and this is the first time seeing one of these videos, I do have a playlist here on my channel showing all of the other amazing Spider-Man reviews that I've done. I go back all the way to the beginning with Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, and then continuing through each issue of the series up to today. And today we're going to be looking at issue number 6. So if you've watched any of my older videos, we've seen the introduction of new characters, new villains, supporting characters, things like that. And today we are back on track with another brand new villain. This time it is the Lizard. And the Lizard is a character that sticks around. The Lizard makes appearances throughout Spider-Man's history as both an enemy and a friend, and we'll get into that. So I'm very excited to go through this issue. It's a little bit different, so let's go ahead, jump right in, and check it out. So here we have the Amazing Spider-Man number 6. I'll say this all the time in these videos. If I'll refer to my older videos. So if you haven't seen any of my older videos, you may want to, like I said, go to the playlist, check those out, and you'll see some of the things that I talk about that are repeated throughout the course of these videos. But this is a scanned copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 6. And this is the original book. So this is not a reprint or something like that. So this is, other than, of course, the aging of the paper and the ink, it looks just like it would have when it was bought from the newsstand for 12 cents back in the day. So we're going to see ads, we're going to see page breaks, we're going to see a lot of it. But what we're also seeing is a document of the times and how comic books were made at that time. So I'm going to be talking about, of course, the artwork, some of the process that goes into making that artwork, the thought behind it from an artist perspective, and some of the production process a little bit as well in regards to that. And of course, the story. So here we start with the cover for Amazing Spider-Man number 6. And I think this is really cool. Obviously, it depicts, sort of the confrontation between the Spider and the Lizard, which is pretty neat and a brand new character. I also really like what I put was sort of in my notes, a yin-yang kind of a imagery, meaning that Spider-Man being red and blue, you have the Lizard being green and purple. So you have these primary colors, and then you have secondary colors across from him. Now, both are sort of head down, but Spidey is hanging upside down. The Lizard is crawling. You could flip this cover, and it would look like the Lizard is crawling up, and Spidey is hanging, sort of down. I really like it. I think it's a really cool, iconic image, and gives us just a sense of danger, a sense of drama, just in a very simple image. But the colors play a huge part in it. We've talked about that in a lot of the other videos in with the other issues. Really key and interesting, that they would choose, again, purple and green. We'll get into that a little further too. So we start off with our splash page, very similar to what we've seen in all the other issues so far. So every issue starts with a splash page. This splash page is okay. Again, for me, I'd like to see maybe more dynamic. I'd like to see Spidey bigger. Yes, we have a lot of lettering here, so sort of selling this issue. You have a big title up at the top. You've got 21-page Spider-Man Super Epic down here. We could get rid of some of that and have a much larger image of Spider-Man. Maybe he's actually, grabbing onto the jaws of one of these alligators that's after him. The Lizard could be a little bit bigger in the background. So it could be more dynamic of a page. But but it's fine. It certainly gives us the concept of what is going to be happening in this issue. So we jump right into it. We're right into action. This lizard guy is threatening the people in the area of the Everglades where he is. I did note, again, we talked about purple and green. So the lizard is a purple, it has purple pants and green skin character. There's a lot. So, and Spider-Man, of course, is red and blue. This happens a lot throughout comics. It is a very simple psychological storytelling mechanism. So, if you're not familiar with colors and color theory, hopefully everybody's had a little bit of sort of Art 101 when you were in elementary school, and maybe you made a color wheel. So there are three primary colors: your red, blue, and yellow. And what art teachers will tell you is every color in the rainbow is made of combinations of those three colors. It's true, there are also things where you add white, you add black. There are some colors that you kind of can't make out of those three, but for the most part, in concept and the science of it, yes, those are your three primary colors, and no colors mix to make those. You cannot mix two colors to make blue, you can't mix two colors to make yellow or red. So those are primary. Your secondary colors are the ones that are made by mixing two of the three primary colors together. So green is yellow and blue. Purple is red and blue. So psychologically, your hero characters are almost always going to be in primary colors. Think Spider-Man, think Batman, think Superman, think Wonder Woman, think Iron Man, Captain America, characters like that, Thor. You're going to see them in a lot of reds, blues, yellows. Very common. Your villainous characters, the characters that we're not supposed to like that much, are going to be shown in secondary, or sometimes what are referred to as tertiary. So it might not just be green, it might be greenish blue or greenish purple or yellow, reddish purple, or things like that. But the idea is your villains typically aren't going to be your red, blue, yellow characters. We don't think of them that way. We don't relate to them that way. So likewise, when you're looking through not only your heroes and your villains, but sometimes your secondary characters. So on this page we have the lizard. The villain is in green and purple, black. Of course, he has the white lab coat. I think some of that is to help him pop out from all the green. So if he's green and the background is green trees and stuff like that, the white lab coat helps pop him out. It also reflects with the character, and we'll see that more. But then you have things like, so we'll go over here to page 3, where we have Peter and J. Jonah Jameson kind of interacting. J. Jonah Jameson is in a green suit because he's not a likable character. He's not a true villain, but he's definitely not on Peter's side or Spider-Man's side. So we see him a lot in green suits, whereas Peter tends to wear blue. So he's got this blue jacket on quite a bit. This is Betty Brant. This is J. Jonah Jameson's secretary, and Peter eventually ends up, spoilers, has a relationship with her. She's wearing red. We're going to see that kind of thing. So the people you're supposed to like are going to be in your more primary colors. The people that we're supposed to not, intuitively care for, you're going to find in your secondary and tertiary colors. So little color theory in terms of character design for you. So not much happening here that's super exciting. Spidey, real quick, they're at a museum. He stops a couple of robbers. Other than the fact that they mentioned the dinosaur skeleton, I don't really understand the concept or what this is, the story piece is including. It's only there's 3 panels, 3 panels here, so 6, 8, 10 panels in the whole, and that's all done, and then he swings off. The whole thing is to get, again, another love triangle. So you have Flash Thompson and his girlfriend is Liz Allen. Peter kind of likes Liz, but Liz won't have anything to do with Peter, but she's interested now in Spider-Man because Spider-Man saved her. I guess that's the whole purpose of it. Seems kind of like a waste of space to me. I'd rather much see, Spidey fighting the Lizard more, but it is what it is. You got to have some subplots here and there. It can't all be superhero action 24/7. Now, this page here, this panel, interesting. I didn't really like it, and I'll explain why. There is a term or a concept in art, and I guess it applies to other things, but I'm familiar with it from an art perspective, and that is called a tangent. And a tangent in this method or this reference point is a concept where you have a line or lines in a shape that are butted right up against other lines of a similar shape, and it makes the two images sort of blur together. It's harder to see the difference between them. So, for example, if I have two pieces of paper, and I want to show these two pieces of paper, if I put them exactly together edge to edge, it might read like it's one big piece of paper with a fold in the middle. If I overlap them at angles, you would be able to tell, oh, that's two pieces of paper. This one is in front of this one, especially if they were different colors. So having two lines line up exactly is a tangent. That's bad. It flattens everything out, and it, again, makes it hard to tell what the shapes are. Having overlaps or slight differences in those lines makes all the difference. And so for this one, what I didn't care for with this panel at the top here is Spidey is in this pose where he's angled in this angle and sort of and the arm is bent, and it really mirrors the skeleton and the shape of the skeleton. And then you also have this swirl of the motion, right? So this is supposed to be him swinging from the ground, swinging up, but that also sort of mimics, and it's also done in the same coloring as the skeleton behind. So it just really turns this, what's supposed to be a dinosaur skeleton behind him, it just becomes sort of a blobby mess of lines and colors. It doesn't read as a real element in the background to me. So that's a tangent. That's something you'd want to look out for. I didn't really care for that. There's easy ways to fix it. One is make Spider-Man a lot bigger. You could make him fill up the panel more so that he's overlapping that dinosaur a lot more. You could change the angle. You could, just by turning the angle of the dinosaur 10-15 degrees, all of a sudden now they are at opposite angles from one another instead of being on the same angle. That would help as well. So just something to look for and be aware of, especially if you are an artist and looking to get into comics. Tangents are a huge thing to keep your eyes open for, because when there is a tangent, your brain will say something's not right. That doesn't work, and once you learn why, you start to dig through it. But it's one of those things that's that can be disturbing or take you out of the story. Actually, I hadn't even noticed it before, but now I'm kind of looking around as I'm talking about it. Let's look at this one here, because this is a tangent right here as well. So he's punching the two guys. This guy in the green is theoretically in front of the guy in the brown. We know that because, in theory, this arm is supposed to be overlapping and this hand is in front of the guy in the brown. Likewise, this guy's hand is supposed to be behind this shoulder. But these are bad tangents. So this line of the character, as it curves around, meets that exact line of the thumb, of the bottom of the thumb, and that's a tangent. The thumb is sitting exactly on that line of the leg, and the fingers end exactly at the back of this leg. So what happens is, if you look quickly, you almost don't see the hand. It blends in to this shape of the leg. Likewise, this guy's hand comes up, and where the fingers would go, there's a tangent with the shoulder. So the lines where the ends of your fingers meet would be, there'd be lines drawn there. That piece of the palm meets, or hand meets that shoulder, and kind of cuts it off. So what you can't tell is the hand curled up and it's supposed to be in front of the shoulder, or are the fingers extended and we can't see them and they're behind the shoulder. So this is also a bad tangent because it flattens the thing out. It makes it very hard to read the depth that space that he's trying to create by overlapping the characters. The way that he did it with Spidey punching and then the characters in front of Spidey, that's great. But something as simple as this and this flattens the whole thing out and kind of defeats what he was trying to accomplish there. So something to be aware of and something to be very careful of. It happens quite a bit. There are a few others in here. They don't really affect the story, so I'm not going to point them out any more unless it's really egregious. But just something I wanted to share, again, looking at the comic from an art standpoint, and that's what we're doing in this series. So Spidey needs to, from a story perspective, he has to go to the Everglades to fight the lizard, but he can't go because he doesn't have any money. He's poor. He can't afford a ticket, so he needs to coerce Jonah Jameson into sending Peter Parker, and he doesn't want to, but so he comes in as Spidey, and he's like, "Hey, you better send that kid to get pictures of me, or I'm not gonna fight the lizard." And so that's what happens. And now we have again some subplot of very short two pictures, two panels here, is that Peter is kind of starting to flirt with Betty, which is kind of cool. Shows Peter's growing up and he's becoming a little more confident in himself, so that's great. Some more stuff just about him going to Florida and how he has to explain to his aunt, and he has to go with Jonah because he's just a kid, and all this kind of stuff. This panel down here, the Spidey running on a rooftop, fantastic. Again, if you've seen other videos, I've talked about this choice of the angle. So this is referred to as a Dutch angle. And what that means is you take something, so that roof line that he's on, that little tiny bit in the corner is the top of the roof. It should be flat. It should be parallel to the earth, right? Buildings are built on 90-degree parallels. We've turned it, and now Spidey is running. Now, one of the things it does is it gives you in a small panel, and again, covered this in other videos, but for anybody who's not familiar with how comic books are made, comic books are drawn on a much bigger piece of paper and then are shrunk down to the size of the final product that we see. So the artwork on this is likely drawn on a 10.5-inch wide by 15-inch area. And the overall page has borders on the outside. So the overall paper is 11 across by 17 down. So 11 by 17. So if this is drawn in a 10.5 by 15, that means that split down the middle with the gutter, that's the white space between the panels, is called a gutter. That might be a little bit. So I'm going to assume that this would be drawn at about 5 inches. It looks square. It's probably, and it's split into thirds, so it's probably 5 by 5. So 5 inches by 5 inches, which is not particularly big. So the point is, you turn that camera angle, and now Spidey can go corner to corner, which is more than 5 inches, right? So I haven't done geometry since 1990, so I don't remember the formula, but the idea here is if you measured it, this diagonal is going to be longer than either side of the square. So that's a way to get more space, but it's also more action. It leans the character forward. It moves us as a reader forward, both in the story and visually, and it's just more interesting. So nice use of the Dutch angle and the pose, the running pose, the arm up, down, and the leg up. Really nice. Great panel, great pose. I wish we had more of these sometimes in these comics, but we're getting there. So let's see here. Go to the next page, and so now he's in the swamps looking for the lizard, and the lizard finds him by grabbing him, and they're in the water. Now, my note indicates water is hard to draw. Makes sense, right? Because we're drawing on a two-dimensional surface, and we're drawing things that are essentially solid. It's solid colors. It's solid ink on a solid page. How do you draw something that is fluid, that is transparent, or at least semi-transparent, right? We can say that it's mucky, muddy water in a swamp maybe, but it's still, you can still see through it some way. So how do you depict that? So I think Steve's done the best that he could here. They've used the color blue to indicate that everything is under the water, so that's a nice choice. We have these motion lines of the swirl or foam or whatever you want to call it of the water, so that also indicates the motion and just that he's moving through something, so that's a great way to do it. Bubbles always help. And then, you know, when he gets out, he's dripping. That's a great way too. But water, when something is in the water, drawing an ocean, a pond, a stream, whatever, that's not so bad. But drawing something underwater is definitely not easy. With today's modern computer coloring, we can do a lot more. But with the older coloring that they had back then, this is about the best you're going to get. This is a good solution for a very tough problem. Again, we're back into the panel, the grid panel, 9-panel grid. As I mentioned, we've talked about this before. There are things where the panels are all designed. The concept of the comic book panels and having them be the same size and fairly small like this comes from newspaper comic strips. You would put them all in an order and they would be read horizontally from left to right. You could do this with this exact page. You could cut every one of these out. They're all the exact same size. You'd lay them end to end and it would read just like that, just like a story. Boom, 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 boom. Comic, the orientation is different, but what Steve Ditko is doing here, I believe, is using the grid panel not just as a default storytelling mechanism, but he's using it as pacing. So each panel is a moment in time. So if you jump through big moments, sometimes it can be disorienting. And I'll show you an example right here. But with the fighting, it works because it's a second, it's a moment. They're standing off, the lizard swings his tail. As Spidey's in the air, he grabs the tail. The lizard whips his tail around. The character goes flying off and ends up in a tree. That is moments, beats and moments of time. Boom, 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 boom. And so putting it into that panels where you're just moving from image to image to image makes sense. If you have a more complicated artistic design to the page, maybe some of that rhythm gets lost. Now, where the panel grid falls short is you have Spider-Man here. He's in a tree. He notices, hey, that's a house over there. I bet that's that lizard doctor I want to go talk to. It's kind of a leap of logic, but okay. And then the next panel, he's hanging on the house, looking in a window. So this is all beats of moments, like literally seconds of time. Boom, this, swing, jump, grab, fling, hit, tree. These are all happening super fast. Now there's a gap in time. How long did it take him to get from the tree to the house? That's where maybe something in between would really help. Or you would have expanded this fight to be the whole page. Then when you go to the next page, that's a break in the reader's mind that says this moment doesn't always have to follow, or this moment on the next page doesn't have to follow this moment. There's a break. That's especially powerful when you turn a page. That's a great opportunity for an artist to either surprise the reader with something they haven't seen before, so you turn that page and, oh, wow, okay, that's cool, or to go from scene to scene. Again, like a TV or a TV show or movie, you might change scenes, and a great way to do that is in a commercial, right? So you have your characters and they've come to a head, there's something going on, they're talking, let's say they're in a car and they park the car, right? Now you cut to commercial. When you come back, they're walking up the stairs of the building they were parked in front of. We didn't have to show them getting out of the car. We didn't have to show them going in the door. We didn't have to show them halfway up the stairs. They're up the stairs and they're going to the room where they have to talk to the bad guy. That commercial break tells us we've spent time as viewers, so time has passed in the TV show as well. That makes sense to us. You can do the same thing in comics with a page turn. Here, we have this time break, but it's not explained. So it's a little awkward in terms of the storytelling to go from I'm sitting in a tree and I see a house off in the distance, and now I'm literally hanging on it what appears to be a moment later. Spidey's fast, I guess, but so he comes in to help and finds out that the lizard is this scientist that he wants to talk to, and that this guy was trying to create a cure that would allow people to regrow lost limbs. He himself suffers. He has a missing arm. He's lost his right arm, and so he tries it on himself, and he grows his arm back, and it works. And it's based off the concept that some lizards can regrow limbs or tails or things like that. So he's using that science. But of course, it goes terribly wrong, and it becomes a Jekyll and Hyde type of scenario. So one of the things you'll see in a lot of the early Stan Lee stories and characters is that they're sort of borrowed sometimes from classical storytelling, that the icon and then twisted into a modern superhero. So the lizard is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He drank the formula that he created thinking it was going to help him. It turns him into a monster. The Hulk is a Jekyll and Hyde analogy, right? It's not a serum, but it's science. This scientist, he develops this thing. He gets exposed to it, and now he can't control himself from turning back and forth into a monster. There's a little Frankenstein in there, stuff like that. So that's not uncommon for a lot of the early Stan Lee characters and stories. I like the lighting on this too. So his hand starts getting scaly, and then it goes to shadows. I love, so having it happen at night and run out in the shadow where you can't see him completely. Now again, that would be, we know what's happened. We know what the lizard looks like. We've already seen it. So there isn't a big surprise there. But could have been done on a page turn maybe, like I was just describing. That could have been cool to see. So this would have been the last panel on a page, and then you turn the page and have a great bigger panel of him destroying this scientific equipment, because now the lizard brain isn't smart enough to come up with a cure. So now he's stuck as the lizard. So he leaves and leaves his family, but he can't resist. He has to come back and keep an eye on them. And his son sees him and is scared. And then there's a snake, because they live in the Everglades and the swamps. So Spidey saves him. I liked this shot here of the close-up of Spidey's hand and shooting the web out to try to web up the tail and web up the lizard, but he's too strong. But I like the idea you have the hand coming, and then the way he bends his wrist to shoot the Spidey, the webs, you can't see all the fingers, but the hint is there. It's overlapping itself, again, creating depth and space, and then it's overlapping the lizard, which is, it's a really nice shot, perspective, kind of. It's a real cheap kind of method of perspective, but it gives us a deeper space in that panel, which I liked. And then as the lizard decides to run away in the swamp, we see it. Now, you don't have to put Spidey's legs and show it through Spidey's legs, but it's a nice framing mechanism, and kind of keeps us in that space of like we're right over Spidey's shoulders. And then as the guy dives down, we duck down and watch, and so we're kind of right there with him. So that's a nice storytelling technique, and again, another nice framing element there. So Spidey goes back, and now he is going to use his science knowledge to help cure the lizard. And this is another Spider-Man trope on a lot of these early issues, and it does carry through that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is a scientific genius, and in all kinds of fields. So whether it's mechanical, chemical, biology, he seems to be very good at everything, and he comes up with what he thinks is a cure. So it's a Spidey trope that we see a lot. Your Spidey powers aren't enough, right? The villains are powerful. His webbing isn't strong enough. The lizard's hide is too hard for him to just punch his way out of this. The guy can crawl up stuff. He commands other lizard creatures. So he's got, minions, if you will. And so Spidey has to rely on what else he has, and that's his science. And so it goes to show us that just power isn't enough. It's power and brains. So that's a nice message, a nice teaching message. Not much again here. Again, the grid of that quick motion of the action. The lizard is burst in. He attacks. He throws a desk. Spidey gets buried under some stuff, and the lizard runs away, thinking that he had killed Spider-Man. So, but Spidey, of course, is okay. He's tough, and so now he's going to try to go and cure this guy. And so if you saw the last episode that I did where Spidey fights Dr. Doom, Spidey begins to pull out lots of what I called web tricks. So he makes all kinds of different shapes and uses for his webbing to protect him from traps, to fight the villain. Here, he makes, as he calls them, web swamp shoes that allow him to float over the swamp and pull his way through looking for the lizard. Again, we're at a phase here where, listen, you got a character that's designed with the concept that he swings around through buildings. That's why, part of why you go, hey, put him in New York. There's lots of big, tall buildings and things for him to swing on. Now he's in the swamp. He doesn't have, there's trees, but it's going to be a lot harder to swing through trees through a swamp. How do you get through it? So this is the mechanism they came up with, is web swamp shoes. So Spidey's webbing can do anything it needs to do, anytime it needs to do it. That's what we're learning here. Okay, this isn't bad. This idea of, like, from a distance he sees this Spanish fort that he says, and then so we've got this tower, and then he's climbing, and then we're getting closer. So it's like we're moving closer with each panel. It's not bad. On this page, this use of the horizontal panel is great. So Spidey has fallen, the rocks or the stones that he's clung to it's old, so it's crumbled and he's fallen to the ground. This is a great way. So he's down and crouched. So let's use that horizontal. Let's make it a much more interesting panel where we can see him crouched into action. We have the lizard here. The alligators could be a little bit bigger or closer. That would have been nice, but it's just a nice break from the grid. I really like this panel a lot. And again, we're seeing that dichotomy of here's your red and blue, your primary color hero, versus your secondary color villains, the green alligators, the green lizards, the green lizard in his purple pants. So this is a great panel. Again, something, I just need more of it. I love it, but I need more of it. Let's see here. More fighting. From an artistic standpoint, I didn't have a lot to talk about with this page and these 6 panels. It's just some story mechanism, really, to get them to where they need to be, which is a one-on-one fight between the two of them. This page I found interesting because now we've got the top, but we're using the bottom third, almost bottom half of the page, really. It's not quite half, but close, as these tall vertical panels. And that's because they've gone into inside the tower. So it's a tall vertical shape, and narrow, so they can't escape each other. We see the curvature, which is a nice touch, and it curves more the farther away it gets from the reader. So you see, like, oops, at the bottom of the panel here, it's almost straight and then begins to curve away as we look up. Same thing as we look down. The curve gets more. Nice little simple perspective trick to show that curvature and then the distance of the height. So I really like the use of these taller vertical panels to emphasize that narrowness and the height. They are in a small, tall, contained area. Same thing here. And again, you can see how he's used the curvature and as well the size of the stones. So again, closer to you, the bigger they are, the farther away the smaller they are. So it really emphasizes the height of this tower. And that's some nice storytelling there. So Spidey manages to get the lizard off balance down below him, and now he's going to feed him this formula. So he does that, but we're still using this vertical imagery. And again, great beats, great action. I'm moving through it with rhythm and pace that I like. So the grid portion works, but it's not that same square grid. So I really like the tall vertical panels. And then here, we think we're in trouble, but nope, it worked, and the lizard's going to start to change. And how do we show that change? Because that is, again, something that's happening in time, but we have static images. And so what Steve Ditko does here is a nice little, again, I don't know, I can't find the term for this. I talked about this in the previous episode where there's something similar where it shows Spider-Man flipping out of a trap. And he used this sort of light-lined, light color, less detail montage, for lack of a better word. It's not a montage, that's something different, but it's showing step by step what's happening. So you start at point A and you get to point B. So you can see the ink lines here are thicker, darker, the color is more vibrant, same with the start, and you have all these phases in the middle of how he gets from point A to point B. I like that. That's great storytelling. Again, in things like TV and movies, we have morphing now with CG, where you can just morph somebody from a lizard to a person and show it. Hard to do in static images like this, but this is a great job. This is also something that you'll see if you read any of the Incredible Hulk, especially those early comics. They use a very similar kind of storytelling technique to show him transforming from Bruce Banner to the Hulk and back. So really nice. I like that a lot. It's a great phase, a great storytelling piece there. Let's see. The Parker luck continues. So he got pictures of the lizard, but from a story perspective, he can't explain how he did it because it might tip off that he's Spider-Man, I guess. And so he tells Jonah that he bought the photos. And so Jonah goes, these are fake. And he rips them up. And so now he's not going to pay Peter for the photos. So he did his hero stuff. He went to Florida. He helped stop the lizard from rampaging. He stopped him from trying to take over humanity. He helped cure this guy so he could come back to his family. And this Dr. Connors is his name, is the real name of the lizard. He's going to end up being both a friend to Spider-Man and an enemy, because the lizard isn't gone forever, but for years, So that's another character that sticks around. So now they head home, and things aren't going great for Peter. And then he decides to give it a try, and he goes to call Liz Allen, the girl who was saved in the museum robbery. But she only has eyes for Spider-Man now. So she's like, give me a break. I want nothing to do with you. And he's like, geez, I'm competing with myself for this girl's attention. What am I going to do? So, last little bit, just some storytelling. Peter kind of sticking it to Jameson as Spider-Man, just kind of razzing him. And then we have this nice foreshadowing bit at the end. I like it a lot. I love it. The shadow, we know exactly who it is. It's the Vulture. Great profile, great silhouette. So one of the things they tell you as you're learning about how to create comics, the best characters have have a completely recognizable silhouette. So when you see that character in just a black silhouette, you know exactly who that is. So Batman is probably the most famous example of that. You don't have to draw the symbol on his chest, you don't have to draw his face. You draw that silhouette of the cape with the scallop shapes and the pointy ears, and everybody knows it's Batman. Well, this one is great. This silhouette of this character, the hunch, the little fluff around the neck, the nose, and the feathers, amazing silhouette, great design. We know exactly who that is. The bend in the back, just so good. Really tells you everything you need to know. So creepy, so awesome. And then great contrast with the back of the red Spidey symbol, right, that we've seen. We see it here on the letters page. We've seen it on Spidey's belt. He sends that light. Love it. And this is the first returning villain that we've seen in one of these issues. So we've had the Chameleon, we've had the Vulture, we've had Doc Ock, we've had the Sandman, we've had the Lizard, we've had Doctor Doom, but this is the first repeating villain. So we're starting to see Spidey's rogues gallery is developing not just as random encounters, but now it's starting to be, we'll see, it's going to start to get personal. So if these villains want to accomplish their goals, now they know, how do I get rid of Spider-Man first? And that becomes sort of the inertia that carries the stories forward for a long time. So that is the end of the book. So we will come back here to us. So that is The Amazing Spider-Man number 6, featuring the first appearance of the Lizard. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed some of the insights that I had in regards to not just the story and how it's going, but the art and how it was put together and the storytelling aspect that Steve Ditko was able to do, was able to achieve through his drawing, and then combining with Stan Lee's dialogue and captions. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for checking out this video. I greatly appreciate it. I do check all of the comments on all of my videos, so if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. I appreciate it greatly. As well, if you like the video, give it a like. Click the like button and think about subscribing to my channel. These Spider-Man retrospective videos are something that I do, I'm trying to do and have been successful so far. I'm producing every Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time. So if you enjoy these, you know there's one coming up on Monday mornings. And look forward to seeing you next time with the Amazing Spider-Man number 7 and the return of the Vulture. So thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next art review. Thanks.